Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Terry Allred with the Holistic Leadership Academy, and you are here for our masterclass, Three Top Challenges of Women Leaders and How to Overcome Them. So you may notice that there's a little bit of a difference between the first few minutes and the subsequent few minutes of this presentation, and that's because when we were recording live, we got so excited, we actually forgot to hit the record button. So, just to explain why things look just a little bit differently. So, challenges that are in your control. The ability to live in alignment with your values so that you make sure that your personal and work life both have meaning, really the beliefs about yourself and your capabilities, and that you are able to meet your goals. And then stress management and self-care strategies so that you not only show up with your own well-being in mind, but we'll talk some about how the most significant way to impact your team is actually to show up as a balanced whole self. And so we are going to explore all of those things. So here's the bio about me. But even as I share it, I want to say that this actually isn't very important. The important part, and why I'm really here talking to you today, is because I have been there. Sometimes I'm currently there. I get it. I have suffered from imposter syndrome. I have allowed limiting beliefs to hold me back from seeking more authority or a different position. I have anxiety. I've oftentimes felt isolated from other women. I have had difficulty managing conflict. All of these things. I've been burnt to a crisp before. All of these things, and the fact that I have overcome them and am in continuous struggle and striving to overcome them, are really why I'm here today, not because I have some certifications and degrees. This is what makes me qualified to be here with you today. So, what about you? You might be a relatively new leader. You might be a seasoned, very experienced leader. You might have had many accolades or maybe even the best training. What we've learned from our survey of women leadership programs is that most women's leadership programs focus on how to negotiate a deal and executive presence, how to look professional in a man's world, and all of those things. And we're really proposing something else. We're proposing helping you learn about yourself so that you can show up fully and authentically, and make an impact because you're doing that. Even if you are super accomplished in your career or in your leadership, you might still be struggling. In fact, I imagine you are still struggling. I'm still struggling with being overwhelmed, with sometimes not feeling very confident, with feeling isolated, and maybe not being able to balance your self-care, your stress management, and all of those things. And so, what I want to say is, you're in the right place. Now, as we get started, I just want to head on address a couple of myths that might be holding you back. And we're just going to bust them. We're just going to bust these myths. I'm so happy, and I didn't actually plant this, but some of y'all actually mentioned feeling like you have to do it all yourself, that superwoman syndrome. I certainly have had that many times in my life. And I want to tell you a little story. This is a picture of our mother. Lisa and I are identical twins. I don't actually know who is who. Lisa, do you know who's who?
Yes, I do. You are on the left.
Okay, great. So I didn't know that when I did this presentation last weekend. So our mother is in the picture holding our younger sister, who's 7 years younger than us. She taught us that we could be or do anything that we wanted to. And that was a message, a conscious message that we both took with us into our adulthood. But we also learned some other things from her, things that she would probably be pretty upset that she taught us. And those were the things she taught us with her actions instead of her words. Those are the things that live in our unconscious about what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a woman. And that is that it's our job to take care of everybody, even to the detriment of our own physical well being. And so I wonder, do you have any unconscious information that is in your head that you might have picked up from watching the women around you? Maybe they said one thing, but you saw in their behavior something different. Now, I am not shaming mothers. Mothers do the best that they can. The point is that we all have unconscious information that is impacting the way that we function. And unless we're aware of it, it might be holding us back and perpetuating that myth of Superwoman that we've all claimed, or many of us have claimed, is impacting our life right now. And so in the Holistic Leadership Academy, we want you to take your cape off. It's time to let go of the cape of being a superwoman. And we're going to offer skills that you can learn, attitudes that you can shift, and beliefs that you can change to help you let go of that sometimes unconscious expectation. Now, it's also a conscious expectation because women in our culture are the executive functioners. We're the ones that do all the things and are expected to do all the things. There's only so much we can control about other people's expectations, but what we can control is the way that we think of ourselves and the permission we give ourselves to show up in a different way. And so it really is true that we have to put our own oxygen mask on first before we help other people. That travel and other opportunities for restoration can be really rejuvenating for us. This is my family on a trip that we took to Banff in Canada one time. So the second myth, and the one that we also heard from you all about, is that there's no way to be successful and have work-life balance at the same time. And that's a really hard one. That's a hard one for many of us because we have found that in the past we haven't been able to balance things in ways that we would really like to. And so we're going to influence what is in your control, and we're going to start with values because values really create the framework for who we are, what we believe in, and how we want to experience our time together. And so let's talk about this. A lot of times we feel super stressed. People are coming to work and they've got so much going on. And there are a couple of things to know about being super stressed. One is that as our stress levels increase, our productivity actually decreases. And so when we try to be all things to all people, we're actually less effective than if we focus and if we take care of ourselves. This kind of chronic stress can zap our concentration. It can make us irritable or depressed. And because we're not able to show up fully present, it can sometimes even harm our relationships. Over time, you probably know that chronic stress even weakens your immune system and makes us susceptible to different ailments. And so we really want to find a new way of showing up, not just for ourselves, but for our teams and our workplaces and our families. So the third thing I think is something that you can most immediately do something about is this myth of it's lonely at the top. I know that in my professional career, I have often worked with people in a situation where I was the only boss, and I had bosses and I supervised people, but I was the only one on my level in terms of leadership, and it was lonely. And when that happens, sometimes we are tempted to go to our superiors for community or go to our employees for community. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but there are some inherent challenges. You don't have to be lonely. You don't have to go it alone. In fact, there's significant research that supports women leaders are more successful when they have a group of other women leaders around them for all of these reasons. And so, one of the things that we do offer at the Holistic Leadership Academy is you don't have to go it alone. We are building communities of women who are doing it together, like our current women's leadership cohorts. These are women from all over the country who are in our flagship Keystone super duper fancy program, the Women's Leadership Cohort. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that as we continue on. But these are women who are showing up in community with each other every week to learn from each other ways to reshape their leadership and ultimately reshape their life as well. So the fourth myth, and one that I particularly enjoy busting, is I don't have time to take care of myself. How many people, just a yes or a no in the chat, have thought this of themselves? I don't have time to take care of myself. There's just not enough time. Do we have any yeses, Lisa?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, um, Lisa, I didn't tell you this, but I want you to talk about the next slide because it's so funny.
Okay. Well, I can talk now because I'm not letting people in and helping people get in. So, so one of the self-care traps that I have fallen into in the past is this all or nothing. Like if I'm not going to the gym for an hour, why bother? Um, and so uh, it's important to focus on some of the smaller things you can do and where you can find time, because a lot of times we think there's no time for us to take care of ourselves. So I did something very scary, which was look at how much time I was on my phone. So different phones do it different ways. Google if you don't know, but feel free to pull out your phone while I'm talking and check out how much time you spend on your phone. I realized I spent 10 hours. Holy cow. I was very surprised. So then I decided to take a deeper look and really dive into it. And there's some things that I just am not going to count. I'm not going to count Spotify because I'll listen to music, in the background. I'm not going to count Kindle because that's the way I read. And it's one of my stress management tools. If I'm somewhere waiting and I've been waiting a long time and I'm about to get irritable, I'll remember, hey, I have a mystery novel on my phone. This is some found self-care time. So, but even after I took all of those things out, I still spend 2 hours a day on my phone, just kind of futzing around. And then I became determined, as you can see my determined face. Oh, 252. Oh, Carly is very brave. She not only looked at her phone, but she put in the chat what it
Wow.
said.
Yay, Carly.
Let's give Carly some love here. Where are those emojis?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get into the strategies, but you really can make a significant impact in just 2 minutes, and we're gonna further explore that. So those are some of the myths that you might have come with. I'll also call them misgivings or, things you tell yourself, I can't really be a balanced, successful leader. But remember, today we are going to face some challenges head on that are in our control. And so the first challenge is the ability to live in alignment with our values. Why is living in alignment with your values so important? To me, it's one of the most important things that I consider on a daily basis. The reason is because that's your truth. That is who you are authentically. Your values, what you believe in life, determine your priorities, and determine the time you spend doing various things. If you stay to the end, which we've invited you to do, then we have a special gift for you, and it is a workbook to help you go through a process that we use to identify your values, track the time you're spending, and create some boundaries around what you're doing and what you might want to let go of. We know that values are really important in determining burnout. One of the top causes of burnout is not having alignment between your personal values and the values of your workplace. This is demonstrated in research. We also know that there are real consequences for us individually when we're not living in alignment with our personal values. We may feel unfulfilled. We may feel chaotic. We might have difficulty showing up fully for anything that we do. And so this workbook that we're going to offer you is really going to help you translate how do you spend your time according to your values? And if you're not spending your time according to what you value most, how can you shift that around a little bit? Because living in alignment with your values creates harmony and creates a calmer nervous system, whether you're doing it at work or you're doing it at home. We're going to challenge you to make yourself a priority, even if that means scheduling time to do whatever makes you feel well. So the second challenge is believing in yourself. I shared a little story about our mother and that she told us that we could do anything we wanted. She believed in us, and it really helped me to believe in myself. But I also heard other messages about scarcity with money, messages about the limits of what I could do professionally and still be a good person, because giving back was the most important thing. And so making money and giving back weren't necessarily parallel priorities for me. And so one of the things that we can help you do, and we are going to help you do right now, is to overcome any limiting beliefs that you might have. And so if you're brave and want to share, do you have any limiting beliefs right now that are preventing you from achieving what you want to achieve in your professional or your personal life? A lot of times we feel like we just don't have enough. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough resources to be able to do things in a way that we'd like to do it. Lots of times I feel like, well, I'm not as good as that person. Why would anybody want to listen to me or hire me instead of this other person who in my head is more accomplished than I am? As I'm getting to see 60 in the front view mirror, I'm wondering, is it too late for me to launch new careers? Maybe you are too. The biggest limiting belief, though, is I'm too busy. Lisa, are we hearing any that
Yeah,
can
yeah, we're hearing a
share?
lot. Yeah. If I'm not working, I'm not doing anything of value, not having enough energy. This one's mine. Rest is being lazy, guilt for not always being with my kids. And I'm happy to reframe that one for anybody. Expert enough to run my own business, am I?
Yeah,
I have to decide between self-care and being up to date with work. I mean, there's just so many good ones.
right. Yeah. Thank y'all for sharing all of these. So we know that limiting beliefs hold women back. Um, they hold everybody back, but in particular, because of the way women are socialized, we tend to take these more to heart. We're going to invite you to be curious about your limiting beliefs. So, this is so interesting to me. Um, According to the National Science Foundation, our brains can produce as many as 50,000 thoughts per day. 95% of those are thoughts that we repeat. And so, if we have a limiting belief, a thought or an opinion that limits our potential or restricts us in any way from achieving what we want to achieve, it's a belief that we're probably repeating to ourselves multiple times a day. Now, we know these beliefs, as I shared before, come from early childhood. They come from things that were modeled for us, not necessarily told to us. They might come from our culture. They come from a lot of different places. And sometimes they serve kind of like a self-imposed glass ceiling for us, preventing us from reaching our full potential. When we're curious about these beliefs, then we can ask ourselves questions like, why do I think that? Where did that information come from? Are there any facts that support that belief? Are there any other potential interpretations? But first, we have to be aware of those limiting beliefs before we can ask those questions. What I'm really proposing is getting those limiting beliefs out of your head and shifting your identity. Because once we understand the limiting beliefs, we can talk back to them. We can vision a new identity. And our brain then sees the possibility once we vision it. And I want to give you just a little example of this. I am a woman who, for some of us, we're a woman who is busy all the time. And I certainly thought of myself that way. And I would often say when people ask how I was doing, oh, I'm fine, I'm just really busy. And so I've decided to shift that identity. And now I am a woman who shows up and is present with the people I am with. I'm not a woman who's busy. I'm rejecting that identity. And part of rejecting that identity is creating expansive space so that I'm not telling my brain all the time, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed. Instead, I'm telling my brain, I am a woman who shows up and is present. It's a really different idea of an identity. And it's something I invite you to consider. Talk back to your limiting beliefs, claim a new identity. You can do it. All it takes is just saying it. Our third challenge that we outlined was prioritizing self-care. Now, I'm not talking about bubble baths. I'm not talking about massages, although I love both of those and they are a part of my personal self-care. But I'm talking about redefining self-care into taking time to do the things that help you live well. What helps you live well? I'd love to hear in the chat. What are some things that help you live well, live well? And while we get some feedback in the chat, I want to tell you a little bit about my friend, the saber-toothed tiger. So we talked a little bit about chronic stress, and we have shared that many of us feel chronically stressed. We've also learned that chronic stress shows up in our body. When we're stressed, our body responds by releasing hormones. It responds by activating your fight, flight, or freeze response. And being aware of our bodies, being aware of our thoughts allows us to speak back to that. Because the fact is, in that meeting where you're feeling nervous about speaking your truth, there's not really a threat of a saber-toothed tiger there. There might be a perceived threat, but it's not a life or death threat, and you can regulate your nervous system so that you can manage that threat. Lisa, what are you seeing? You're muted.
Sorry, this is such a great crowd. So everything from, actually taking a lunch break to read a book, setting aside time, spending time outside, walking, being creative, painting, music, running, um, taking time for myself to do things that you want to do. Oh, I love this one, Amanda. Save inspiring quotes to my phone and sometimes just spend 5 minutes going through them to help center and calm myself. That's one I haven't tried before. I love that idea. Movement. baking, all of those, yoga, such
Wonderful.
great ideas. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we should maybe compile some of these chat
Hmm.
ideas and send them out when we send out the partial recording of the workshop that we have.
Okay. In my defense, there was a lot going on at the beginning.
For sure. We should have had a third person helping us with this. Yeah. Okay, great. So I mentioned before that I am too busy is the biggest excuse we hear from people about taking care of themselves, about finding balance. And remember, self-care is not just bubble baths. It's really what we do to live well. And so we alluded to the fact before that we actually can make a significant impact on our well-being just by spending 2 minutes or less a day. And so I'm wondering if, in the brilliance of this room, y'all could think of things you could do in 2 minutes or less that would help you live your life in a way that is focused more on your well-being. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We've been brainstorming too, and while people share their thoughts, Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of things that we've learned. I don't know if you have animals, but I did not, until I had animals, understand the pleasure of lying in front of a sun saturated window in a warm spot, in a sunshine spot on the floor. And now I regularly do that with my animals. Laughing can shift your stress and emotional state pretty immediately. And if there aren't comedians that you like, all you have to do is pick up your phone and spend some of that time that we said maybe you shouldn't spend on watching TikTok funny animal videos. Lisa, what are some other ideas?
So lots that we had on the sheet already, but a couple that we didn't. One is not planning work things in the 2 weeks before or after winter holidays or Christmas,
Uh-huh.
so that you don't end up having divided attention. Having a device that reminds you to get up and move, box breathing, snuggling pets, sending a loving text makes your partner happy, makes you happy. Reducing commitments, listening to music, so many good ideas. Yeah, we'll definitely save the chat and compile.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, as we wrap up, because we really do want to have some time for conversation and questions, I am wondering, is there one special thing that you learned today or one action that you're going to take that is going to impact your life? Maybe you're going to commit to that 2 minutes. Maybe you're going to spend some time thinking about what are the limiting beliefs that I have and how do I want to challenge them? Maybe you're going to find some community and spend some time finding support for yourself as a leader. So I'd really love and invite you to share some of the things that you might be willing to do. And Lisa, we're going to review those in a minute. I mentioned before that we do have a women's leadership cohort. We're opening again in June and we're accepting applications now for participants. This cohort is an 8-week commitment. It's 8 weeks of curriculum that is comprehensive. You can find it on our website and workbooks because we believe that it's important not just to learn new content, you can do that everywhere, but how do you apply content to your own life and really make some transformations? We have weekly group coaching. In fact, right now with this cohort, we're having coaching twice a week because we are finding it to be the most valuable part of the cohort experience. We've got ongoing community support. So we have a platform called Circle where our participants in this cohort message each other and share information and ask questions. And there might be a little delay, but mostly Lisa and I are on there pretty continually when we're not asleep. And then you get lifetime access, not just to the curriculum, but to the community as well. So if you're interested, Lisa's going to share a link where you can get some more information about that. And like I said, we are accepting applications right now to be a part of that. This is kind of just a little glimpse into the back end of the women's leadership cohort. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have a bunch of different curriculum areas and resources, events that we have. We also, as a special gift for those who have stayed with us, we are offering you a 20% off coupon for our next two trainings that we're doing. These are going to be virtual trainings, amplifying impact through self-care. So if you learned a little bit about how self-care could help you in the workplace and you want to learn more about how you really can amplify your impact at work, then we invite you to our April training. And then in May, we're going to talk more about leadership through a trauma-informed lens. And that is finding compassionate understanding for yourself and for those who you might be leading. Both of these workshops are $35, and I believe with 20% off, they're $28. I'm not so strong at math, but I'm almost positive that's what we decided. Lisa, anything you want to share about what people are going to be taking away from this?
Yes. Let me finish putting the link to joining us in the Facebook community. Did you say that, the free one?
Oh no, I forgot about the Facebook community. So we also have a Facebook community that is in alignment with our Holistic Leadership Academy page. And so Lisa has put the link to join that free community. And we are going to be sharing resources, going live once a week in that community, and just trying to build a community outside of our cohort community. And then we finally have the gift that we promised you, the Living a Values-Based Life. It is a PDF that Lisa is going to share. It's a workbook that will allow you to go through the steps that we go through to translate values into priorities and time you spend during your week. And so, Lisa, now are you at a point where, and this is a good learning that we need two
Oh
people
my
to
gosh, I have too many jobs. I've got to go. I apparently didn't download the free gift. So I'm going to put in the link for the 15-minute free consult. And then I am going to read some of these out to you, and then I'm going to go grab the workbook.
Wonderful. Thank
Um,
you.
so different things, taking time, reducing the amount of time I spend on my device, and spending time on things that I actually enjoy. This concept of limiting beliefs, several people mentioned that. Figuring out your top values so you can align your time, the ways that we're talking to ourselves. If you're working virtually, getting out there and connecting with other people, being okay with making ourselves a priority. I mean, all of those are amazing things.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so I can help with the driving portion of this program. And so while you find our links in our PDF, I would just like to invite anyone to share comments or questions. And I mean, you can raise your hand and I can call on you, or you can unmute. I promise if two people unmute at the same time, somebody will stop talking and then the other person can finish their thought. So does anybody have any questions or any reflections you'd like to share with the group in our last few minutes together? It's maybe a little scary to unmute in front of all of these people.
Yeah,
Think
don't be scared because I basically have been messing up the whole time. So
no,
go
I think
for it.
you ladies have done a wonderful job of pulling this all together and summarizing. And I can't see all of the faces, but it looks like we have a nice variety of age groups, which is really, really important. I love hearing, Terry, that you say, you know, looking at 60 And I mean, I'm looking closer at 70, and I'm still there
Yeah.
because I'm healthy. I have lots of energy. I have a passion, and I can still, in all of these years, I've gotten better. That's always my New Year's resolution, is to just get better at one thing.
Mm,
And
wonderful.
making sure I'm best. I think we talk about the walk. I heard so many people say they love getting outside. That's me. I love getting outside. Um, that's where I start my day,
Mm,
outside. And I found my day is so much more productive when I start my day outside. So
right.
wherever that time fits for you, I mean, I really encourage that, getting out and getting fresh air, no matter the temperature, no matter the weather. We have
Mm,
raincoats, we have gear, even if it is for that, even if that's your 2 minutes,
hmm.
step
Thank
outside.
you. Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Any other thoughts or questions that are coming to y'all?
I have one. How do you either process or deal with the guilt? I have guilt when it comes to trying to do self-care. If I'm like miss a meeting or like a really important contact that could help the nonprofit like flourish, I feel bad for that, and I just don't know how to process that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amber, for asking that question. I mean, show of hands, how many of us have guilt? I mean, for sure, it's a thing. And um, in my experience, guilt is when we have warring expectations and aren't sure how to prioritize them. When people want different things from us and we feel like we're letting people down if we don't offer the thing that they're wanting. And so I think that is why it's so important to anchor yourself in, what are my values? How do I want to spend my time to live those values? And then what are the relationships that are important to me that I do want to show up for? And what are the limits that I'm going to allow myself? Because when you're feeling guilty, that actually is an emotion that is restrictive. And so, guilt, when we have it, limits our ability to function at the positive way. I mean, it's really one of those emotions that triggers the stress response. And so, guilt in and of itself is not at all productive. It's not generative, it's not expansive. And so I know that sometimes it's really hard to let go of the guilt, but if you can explore it, what is the guilt about? Is there another story about that? Where did I learn that it's not okay? So, both exploring the unconscious beliefs around guilt, aligning what your values are and how you're going to spend your time in alignment with your values, and then really, how can you create the boundaries that allow you to let go of the guilt because you know you're living a life in alignment with who you want to be.
Can I bop in on this one,
Of
Terry?
course. Yeah.
So, a lot of the chat, and I don't know, Amber, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but has to do with like family members and kids and feeling guilty about not spending enough time. And part of it is just collecting accurate data. I in my other life do a lot of work with parenting, like I said, and the reality is spending all your time with your kids is not what's best for them, and quality is more important than quantity. And spending 20 minutes where you don't have your phone in the room, as opposed to, and this is true not just for kids, but with anybody, where they have your undivided attention, is a much more powerful interaction than if you're doing something else at the same time. So sometimes the guilt that we feel isn't even based on things that are real once we start investigating, like what's actually can be demonstrated by, and I hate to always say evidence based, but I'm big at looking at research on stuff. And anyway, so I just wanted to share that if that's a piece of anybody's guilt, which I know it is because y'all put it in the chat.
Another thing that I know Amber's heard because she was at my workshop this weekend, but I'll repeat for the people who weren't there, is when you're trying to decide how you spend your time, I invite you to ask, can I do this with an open and loving heart? If you can't, then you might find resentment if you say yes. And when you do this exercise that we've laid out on the PDF, it will really help you, by Jessica, it will really help you to analyze what is important to you and how can you map out your time and your commitments so that you're showing up for what's important to you. And it just ultimately becomes, do I want to act out of guilt or do I want to act out of love? And I know that's like super kind of woo-woo, but ultimately that's what it is ultimately about. Other thoughts or questions in our last couple of minutes?
There's so what if, oh, is this you? Oh no, sorry. Amber already asked that. It was Amber.
Okay, great. Great. Okay, well, thank you everyone so much for coming. We hope that we'll see you at one of our subsequent classes or in our Facebook group where we can have more communication. If you haven't checked out the Holistic Leadership Academy, check us out. We are, as I said, accepting applications for our next cohort and would love to talk to you about it. Lisa has added a link to a discovery call chat if you're interested. And we hope to continue to connect with you all. Let us know offline through the Facebook group or email if you have any other questions. And we will be sending out what recording we have and the resources after, probably not till tomorrow, but we appreciate your coming and being with us and sharing your wisdom and your insight, and hope you have a really great rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you.
Lisa, you can turn the recording off.
What if I don't want to return it off? What if I want to make up from not turning it on in the first place and have a little extra bonus material?
Yeah, I knew that